One of the scariest realities I know of being a Christian is that you've got to die to be able to live. And that's really hard work. One of my friends, whose name is Life Mutaka in Kenya, over the years I've asked many people, tell me about your baptism. And Life gave me the funniest answer I've ever heard. He said, it was the worst day of my life. I said, Life, how could the baptism be the worst day of your life? And he said, well, I was a student at a little tiny Seventh-day Adventist school on the edge of the Zambezi River in Kenya, in what at that point was actually North Rhodesia, Northern Rhodesia. And somebody came and did a week of prayer. And during the week, they kept talking about what Jesus would do in your life and how badly Jesus wanted you in heaven and all of those things. And I realized I was not living right, and I begged for God to forgive me. And then one day the pastor said, before you can live with Jesus, you have to die. Well, I knew that because Jesus was going to take dead people to heaven. I already knew that. And then it dawned on me, he was also asking me to be baptized. And then he was talking about how when you're baptized, you die. And then he came to me Friday afternoon and asked if I was willing to be baptized because he'd like me to be the first one in the water on Sabbath afternoon. I said, okay. And I sat down at my little desk and I wrote a letter to my parents telling them how much I loved them and how thankful I was for all that they had done for me. But that tomorrow I had decided to die in Jesus and go to be baptized. I wrote little notes on the favorite stuff I had around the room and said, this one's for you, Billy, this one's for you, please make. And then when it came time to be baptized, I looked back at the school and all my classmates and walked into the river. Hippopotamuses up there, crocodiles down there, a little place shallow that usually was safe. And the pastor put his hand over my face and said goodbye. And I knew I was dead. But I was willing to die so that I could live with Jesus and so Jesus could live in me, whatever that meant. But I must tell you that when I felt the water flowing down off my face and I saw that the sun was still shining and my friends were still on the beach, that was really good news. Life Mutaka is the director of education for the Zambia Union of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And he's just a wonderful Christian gentleman. And he laughs and says, it's hard, Dick, but before you can live with Jesus, you gotta die. And I said, so what does that really mean to you now? And he said, it means all that stuff that used to be important to me, the getting things, the becoming rich, the making sure that I was at the top of the heap rather than at the bottom, all of the things that are selfish went away. And Jesus Christ, at my request, came in and filled me with his compassion. Big tears in Life's eyes when he shares that story. After that, you go to chapter 3, verse 1. Since then you have been raised with Christ. Set your heart on things above, where Christ is sitting at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things above and not on earthly things, for those have died. And you have been raised with Christ and his Father. And if you focus your mind and your heart, your intellect and your emotions on heaven, where Jesus is sitting at the right hand of the Father, and know that according to the book of Revelation, there is a place on his throne for you to sit beside him. Now, I don't know exactly how that works. I'm convinced there's more dimensions in heaven than there are on earth. And that there is some crazy reality that all 20 billion of us who are going to be saved are going to be able to sit next to Jesus on the throne beside his dad. Now, I don't know how that works. Again, Star Trek doesn't fix it. None of those things fix it at all, but there is something in heaven that makes it possible for all of us to be right there next to him. How are you doing, Lord? It's going to be wonderful. Then in verse 5, God is very clear about some things that go away. He even says, put them to death. And then he gives a long list. Whatever belongs to your earthly nature, sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desires, and greed, which, by the way, is idolatry. And if you have ever really dreamt for a new Xbox, and you're hoping that's greed, okay? And that's idolatry. Because that becomes something that slips in between you and God. And so be careful what you wish for. It may be the thing that separates you from what you want the most. That's what that says. You used to live this way, but now you must rid yourself of all things like this: anger, rage, malice, slander, filthy language, lies. Because you have taken off your old self and all its practices. Now, this is not a conversation about the things that we do wrong, okay? There's a lot of stuff that's got to go away. It doesn't all come off at the same second. It comes off as God lives in us, and we discover that those things are simply not valuable anymore, and they kind of slough off like dead skin. They just go away because they're not important to us anymore. If we start being Christians by trying to get rid of all the stuff, we will fail miserably. Because in us, we do not have the strength or capacity to eliminate the bad. But that's why God says you got to die first. And once you've died to your earthly nature, let me fill you up. And God does the transforming from the inside out. Where we would do it from the outside in. It doesn't work from the outside in, but from the inside out, oh my lands. And then you get to verse 12. You ready? Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and beloved. Now let me work with those three things. We've been chosen, we're holy, and we're loved. What does it mean to be chosen? Every human being, according to the book of John, chapter 1, for the light of God lights every human. That means each of us, the moment we exist, have been chosen by God to live in his house. We are his family members. That's why you go to mission fields. Help them realize that this life here is not just to live and eat yucca and die. No, it's God has selected you, each of us, because he's got a big, big house where we could play football. And I don't think that's the... Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy. What does holy mean? A synonym is sacred. And the best illustration or the best phraseology definition I've found is set apart for God's use. Now think about that. I've been chosen, but more than that, because I've allowed God inside me and said, please, take off all this old garbage stuff and let me live your life. Come inside and transform me. I have been set apart for God's use. That's when God comes along and says, I've got a job for you. Last week, I was driving a lot, and I listened to the book Unbroken by Laura Hillenbrand. You know, the story of an American flyer who was shot down in the Pacific and went through horrors of prison, and, you know, there's just too many awful things. And when he came home, post-traumatic stress syndrome, he was an alcoholic, he was a mess. And one day, his wife, who had already served divorce papers, said, there's something I want you to do for me. And he refused. And she said, no, it's really important. And she badgered him for 3 days. And he finally agreed to go downtown in Los Angeles and listen to a preacher talk about God. The preacher was Billy Graham. And he went to a Billy Graham evangelistic meeting. And all through the meeting, he's having these flashbacks of experiences in prison camps. And then when Billy Graham makes the call, he says, he's already told his wife, if he does that every head bowed thing, I'm splitting. And so when Billy Graham said every head bowed, every eye closed, as Billy Graham used to do so well, he started to stand up to leave, and Billy Graham said, and if you're thinking of leaving now, you can leave while I'm preaching, but not while I'm praying. And our POW flyman was stuck there. And as he listened to Billy Graham's call and his prayer, he was taken back to one last flashback. Wonderful story. That's the flashback of that day on the sea when the sharks went away, and for a few hours they were becalmed. There was no wind. It was blistering hot. The sea shimmered, and he and the one airman who was still with him looked up at God and felt they could see the face of God through the heat and the sheets of nothing on the water. There was nothing. You could go all the way around every direction, and all they could see was water. And both men that day in that orange raft looked up at God and said, if you get us out of this, we will serve you forever. And that was the last flashback he ever had. And instead of walking out, his wife, dumbfounded, watched him walk forward and die. Amen. For Jesus. And if you follow his life from then on, the thing that's really fascinating is that he committed the rest of his life to saving young boys from lives like he had been in. Now, why did that happen? He would tell you it was this word holy, set apart for God's use. Yeah, that's what he would say. And that's what he does say very clearly. And so you and I, chosen, holy, set apart for God's use. God just doesn't choose us and then get inside of us and say, have a good life, I'm busy over here. No, he says really weird stuff to us. I need you. I need you lots. Chosen, holy, what's the third one? Beloved. Now, beloved, if it's just loved, yeah, I love you guys. That's not beloved. Beloved includes hugs. It includes presence at times when things are really tough. It includes calls in the middle of the night. It includes 1,000 other things. I can say, I love you, hi. It's different. Chosen, holy, beloved. And the word that's used there is one that includes a hug. And now, as God's chosen people, holy and beloved, clothe yourselves. Interesting phraseology here because he's asking you to do the impossible. You've died. Anything you're doing right now is done because he lives in you. And when he says clothe yourselves, what he's really saying is take those gifts I've given you and put them on. And the first gift that he lists is compassion. Take those gifts I've given you and put them on. Clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. In the last few months, it's just overwhelmed me that that's the essence of being a Christian. It's so simple. It's so hard. Compassion, by definition, is, and I'm doing this on the internet, on Wikipedia, so you know I'm accurate. Actually, I'm doing it on Wikipedia and every other dictionary. I got about 30 definitions that I stack up and try and figure out. Now, what really is the definition of compassion? Well, best I can find so far is compassion is when my heart beats in rhythm with yours. That's compassion. So much so, because there's a comma there, when my heart beats in rhythm with yours, so much so that I feel your pain and want to fix it. Compassion doesn't mean I fix it, by the way. Compassion talks about something going on in my heart. Kindness is the fixer. Compassion is the kind of people who want to help. Kindness is the action. I didn't realize that. I thought compassion meant I get in and I clean the basement. No, compassion is my heart beats in rhythm with yours to the point where I can feel the pain in your life and I want to help with it. And you know I want to be part of helping. The very process of being compassionate, of listening to another's heart, often fixes the problem. When I listen to where you hurt, something really odd happens in your head. You think more clearly and often are able to solve the problem yourself. I don't even have to do it. But the process of being heard by a compassionate heart makes you a clearer-minded person. It's just an amazing thing. Now, one day, Brenda and I were in the town of Frere in Chile. And don't look for it. It's tiny. But you may find it, Frere. And then it's right about the middle of Chile, and we're building a church. It's Christmas time. We're having a wonderful time. And one of the things we're doing is clinics in the distant Indian areas. Now, these are where the people live who do not speak Spanish. They don't speak German. If you ask them, where are all the Germans that came to Chile? All they do is point up on the mountains, and they say, in the wealthy houses. They don't speak German. They don't speak English. They speak the original Mestizo language of their families, their great-great-great-great-grandparents. And they don't want to have anything to do with the modern people. No, not. But when Brenda comes with a clinic where we give them glasses, we take care of their teeth, we have a doctor who comes and works with them and helps deal with their malaria. There's 1,000 other things. These people come in droves. There's usually 150 to 200 of them waiting for the first day when the doctor comes. Well, glasses were the big thing at this clinic. Everybody wanted glasses. I remember standing there and trying to take a picture of the line of people wanting glasses. It went clear out into the forest somewhere. And we were in a little tiny schoolhouse that has a little government clinic over in one corner. And the lady who is the physician for all the government clinics was with us, and she speaks the language, and we were just having a party. And this one old lady comes in and says, I cannot see. Oh, nothing. I see light move, sometimes dark light. It's very hard. And so you do all the eye tests. You know, you get out the little machines and you look and you ask her if she can read anything over there. She can't. She sees squiggly lines. Of course, then you realize it's English anyway, so she's not going to know what those are. So we work on her a while, and we finally decide there is a strength of glasses that would work on her. And so the lady in charge of glasses, Mary, goes through all the glasses and looks. And she finds two that are close, and she reaches up and puts them on. And the lady goes, and so you decide, that's not the right one. You put another one on, she goes, that doesn't work either. And so Mary says, there's a few back where we're staying. I'll bring those tomorrow if you'd like to come. Tomorrow is Christmas Day. And when we go back to do our clinic on Christmas Day, The lady is there at the door, waiting. Well, Mary has looked through all the glasses back at the dorm, and she hasn't found anything that might work. And the lady is just about to die. She is so hurt. She had come with all her hope. And as Brenda watches, the lady comes to Mary's desk, and Mary says, "I'm really sorry. I couldn't find anything more, but I looked all night." And the two of them embrace and cry together. And then as Grandma starts to walk away, Mary says, "Just a moment. I have an idea." And she switches from compassion to kindness and reaches up and takes off her own glasses and says, "Try these." And the lady puts them on and begins to dance. They work, they work, they work. I can see. And as we watch, Mary stands there not really able to see everything that's going on anymore, but she can hear the happiness, and she is dancing along with the lady who's wearing her glasses. And the lady dances right out the door and off into the woods. And Mary turns around, tears flowing down her face, and says, "That's the best Christmas gift I've ever received." What did she receive? The gift of blindness. She received joy, didn't she? She received what happens when we allow Jesus to get inside us and give us his gifts. Compassion. She would have given that lady anything. But what she really gave her was a heart beating in tune with hers. And then when it came time, she shifted from the full adventure of hugging someone you've come to love, and shifted over to something needs to be done, I'm going to do it, which is kindness. That's the definition of kindness. Something needs to be done, I'm going to do it for them, regardless of its impact on me. Isn't that a great definition? That's my Wikipedia. It's the Dickopedia. And she gave her glasses away, and it was no big deal. She can get glasses when she gets home. And she was blind the rest of our trip, and happy blind. We actually found a pair that almost worked, so she was okay, but she was so happy it didn't matter. And so put on, because I've chosen you. Because I've said, I've not just chosen you, but I've set you apart for a special work. So there's three, remember? What are they? Chosen, holy, beloved. Beloved is the process of learning the safeness of a compassionate, Christ-filled hug. Share those. How many times I've seen them in my life. Last week I was in Lodi, California at a hospital all week, and we had a baby born in the hospital who was born defective to the point that it couldn't live. I'll never forget all the hugs I saw in the OB maternity area and among the administrative team. Nurses, people from central supply, people from radiology, looking at each other and thinking about what the other is going through. And the hugs in an administrative team at a hospital, when you discover that the housekeeper is in charge of making everything clean, is over there hugging the nurse who is in charge of OBGYN and all that happens there, and the two of them are weeping together with hearts that are beating in tune, because all they can think about is that mom and that family and that baby, and they're trying to find new ways to love them as Christ loves us. I want to tell you, this is a good world. It's a great world, because it's a place where dead people live again. My illustrations are so simple and so small. please make big ones in us, each of us. Help us to sense far beyond what we've ever sensed before, that we're chosen, that you've got a job for us. And may we feel your hug almost to the point of broken ribs. Amen.